Hi, welcome to the channel. I'm just going to shoot from the cuff on this one because I've been thinking a lot about what I want people to get from my channel. What I want people to get from my channel is the joy of making and appreciating art. I want everybody to be able to have that. Like, not just to be like, ooh, that's a pretty picture, but to like look for the deeper themes and like create and like the creation of art and like how to create meaning, and like that's really important to me. But I've also been thinking about how sometimes I have like gatekeepy thoughts about art and things that make me want to put art up on a shelf and say, no, you can't have this until you behave right. And like, when you think about it, what is like the mindset behind gatekeeping? It's, I love this thing so much and I don't think you love it enough, so I don't want you to have it. I feel like that is like the ethos behind gatekeeping. And like, I feel like that's also a very sympathetic way of gatekeeping, because when you think about gatekeeping, I mean, what I default to is like oh, you like that band? Name 5 of their songs. Like that kind of gatekeeping. So it like, when you think about gatekeeping, you don't want to be empathetic, but I think acknowledging like you really love this thing and you want to protect this thing kind of gives it that humanity and that empathy. So like, I really love art and I really want to protect art, and I also really want to share art. So these are the things that make me want to put art up on a shelf and say, you can't have it. One of the things that came up, and the thing that sparked this whole thought process, is I had this memory from back when I was working at Michael's. I think that every artist who wants to become a serious artist usually starts out in some sort of crafts or art store, and mine was Michael's. I was a stalker, and then I was a stalker as in S-T-O-C-K, not S-T-A-L-K. I'm not stalking people, I'm stalking items. But then I was a cashier. I greatly preferred cashiering. But when I was a cashier, this lady came up to me and she was like asking about something. I forget what she was asking about, but then she looked at me and she's like, you don't understand. I'm an artist, like a real artist. And that pissed me off, because at that point, I had gone to art school and had to drop out for my mental health. I was an artist. I was just struggling, and it's like, you're not more of an artist than me because you're like, what, going to Michael's and like getting acrylic paint and throwing it on a canvas? Like, what the fuck? It pissed me off. It also pissed me off because you're shopping at Michael's. This is where students and children shop for art supplies. If you were an artist, an art artist, you would be shopping at Service Repro, which is downtown. That's where our art professors had us shop. And it, like, stuff like that makes me want to be like really gatekeepy. Like, you think that you are special and that other people aren't special, and like, therefore I want to take art away from you and say you can't have this until you learn how to appreciate it. Like, that's one of the things that makes me feel really gatekeepy. So it's like this real artist's idea. The similar vein, something that makes me feel really gatekeepy about art, is when someone feels like they have the authority to go, that's not art. When I think about people who are gatekeeping art and saying like what is not real art, I think about like these people who point at like classic Renaissance, ancient Greek, or like neoclassicist paintings, you know, Academy style paintings, and they're like, this is real art. But like, when they point at like Mark Rothko or Kandinsky, they're like, these are not real art because they're not representative. It doesn't look like it takes skill. But like, I really get angry about that, because I feel like people like Rothko and Kandinsky, while they're doing something that isn't like visually complicated, they're doing something emotionally complicated. They're really trying to put thought and meaning into their art. Jacob Geller actually did an incredible video essay on what modern art has to say and the response to it, called who's afraid of modern art or contemporary art. I forget off the top of my head, but he covers Barnett Newman. And the name is taken from Barnett Newman's series of paintings called Who's Afraid of Red, Yellow, and Blue? Because the canvases are quite simply red, yellow, and blue in straight lines, straight blocks. Very like crisp, clean, very modern, but very simple. And it made people so angry that they were defaced because they couldn't imagine that these paintings had anything more to say than just being red, yellow, and blue. They didn't ask any questions. They didn't take in anything else about the painting. So it was, someone took a box cutter to the painting. And when they went to restore it, they couldn't, because they found, like, when they just painted red over it, it lacked something. People said afterwards, like, this isn't the same thing. This doesn't look good. Rothko, similarly, he worked mostly in secret, and he mixed his own pigments to kind of balance matte and gloss. He added weird ingredients to his paints that gave them distinct textures and distinct depth. And when it's defaced, it's almost impossible, because it was defaced. Someone painted their name on black and maroon, and they wrote like a little slogan, and they said, I wrote it down, contemporary artists simply produce things that aren't creative in their essence or spirit, because he was so fundamentally uncurious about what this painting had to say. And that's just really angry. That makes me so angry. And I really want to someday encourage people to go into art asking questions instead of asking for answers, And I think it's like, okay, what is he trying to evoke with this painting? It's red, yellow, and blue. We're thinking primary colors. That makes me think childhood. That makes me think sunshine. That makes me think like being a kid and learning your first colors. Red, yellow, blue, primary colors. These are the foundation blocks of color. Like, what does that mean? And you ask these questions to try and get to what the artist is saying. Another great video essayist is CJ the X, and I might be misquoting them, but they posit objectivity in the critique of art as like a game where you're not going to win the game, but the goal is the striving for the correct interpretation and understanding of the art. That's the goal. When you're making art and when you're reading art, it's a game to try and get the right idea. So when people refuse to play that game, when people refuse to engage at all, that makes me really angry. I want to take the classical art, I want to take the Greek art away from them, and I want to say, you cannot have this until you've sat in front of the Rothko painting for an hour and think about what you did. I'm so angry about that. When I think about what these things have in common, I kind of find the thread that it's about exclusion. It's about a lack of curiosity and intention. It's about dismissiveness, like, you're not a real artist, this isn't real art. And that kind of makes me angry. And I also want to be aware of that in me, because there's definitely been times that I have looked at things and said, I don't think that's real art. And when it's like you think about like those things where you take acrylic paint straight from the bottle, you put it in a solo cup, and then you like dump it over a canvas, and I'm like, I don't think that's art. I think that's arts and crafts. I don't think it's not valuable. I think there's like good that can be found in like just the total freedom to make a mess, but I don't think it's art. But I think the difference there is like the curiosity is the difference. Like I'm willing to engage with that seriously. Like, what do you get out of that doesn't make it art but makes it valuable anyway? Because like, I don't think it's art. I think it's play, and that play, like I said, is valuable. So I like, when I think about what makes me angry, it is this fundamental lack of curiosity, this lack of willingness to engage, this utter dismissiveness. I think that's the core, is the dismissiveness. And I think that just makes me really upset and really angry, because like there's so much to be found in trying to understand and coming at things with curiosity and asking questions. And I feel like that's good advice, not just for art, but for life. Yeah, that was what I wanted to talk about, to share. I really want to do more of these like rambly art history, art theory talks with you, because genuinely I want to share the things I find beautiful and incredible about art through history, whether contemporary or classical or ancient, or like I've had ideas for like breaking down funerary art specifically, like across cultures, because funerary art is such a beautiful way that we continue to participate with loved ones who are no longer here. And I think in our modern culture, where we're very hands off with the dead, like you get maybe like a headstone, maybe a mausoleum, and like that's all you do as far as the act of creation with the dead. Where when you look back at historical graves, they were filled with artifacts, filled with signs of life, filled with things that took somebody into the afterlife. I've wanted to talk about that before, and maybe one day I'll go more into it, because I looked at Egyptian, like, because we're Egyptian art is really known for its funerary art. I feel like that's like a really common one. But I was also looking at Chinese funerary art or Neolithic funerary art, because like some of that is like the only art that's left, are these of these ancient civilizations, is what's been buried, because it's been buried. And yeah, I don't know, that's something I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about art in the AIDS crisis, because art in the AIDS crisis has a lot of these modern concepts where people would look at that and say, well, that doesn't do anything, that's not thoughtful, or that's just two clocks on a wall, that's just a pile of candy. And it's like, no, there's like really deep things that the art is saying here, and you need to think about and engage with it curiously. So I really want to cultivate that here with you. So if you have any questions about art in general, whether it's like technical information, like how to make art, how to sketch, blah, 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 or if it's more theory-based, I would love to discuss this stuff more. I am so deeply passionate about it, and I don't feel like I get to talk about it enough. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, tell me what your favorite art movement is. And if you say Impressionism, I'm going to come to your house and put rocks in your shoes. I'm kidding. If it's Impressionism, it's fine, but that's so much of like a basic answer. Tell me like something weird. Tell me Bauhaus. Tell me you loved Bauhaus, and I'll be like, oh my God, you're so cool. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you liked this ramble, please let me know. And I hope you have a beautiful day, evening, afternoon, weekend. Goodbye.